second, I was like listening to a video today. Was listening to a video today on ecology from a different teacher she had made a year or two ago. And I kind of liked some things that she said that weren't like content related, but ecology is probably like the unit, if you're comparing it to 9th grade biology, it's the thing that adds the least out of all of our units. So like if you have a pretty good understanding of 9th grade biology or ecology during 9th grade, of course we did just start adding it in again. Did you guys have ecology? Yeah. So for a while we weren't doing it because we handed it off to the middle school to do, and then we keep changing curriculum every handful of years. So anyways, this one has A, the closest alignment to what you've already learned, and B, it's probably the most reasoning based. So it's not like you have to really understand concepts. If you're a good reader and you can make sense of graphs, you're going to be pretty well set for the ecology component. So today, I thought I would start with some Frq practice because we do need to practice with that. And I should have printed maybe some off on paper for you guys that are here, because I think talking to the text is a big part of your planning of your essay. So I put it in a PowerPoint form in thinking that you might be able to talk to the text a little bit better that way. And these concepts that you'll see in this PowerPoint are things that were covered from the MSU gals. So I feel like we're prepared to answer this. So we're going to spend, you have a 10-minute reading period for your FRQs, but your FRQ is like 2 long questions and then 4 short questions. I'm giving you 1 long question. So 5-minute planning time would be plenty. I usually do like 3 minutes planning time when I do these in class as a test. So we might spend just 3 minutes reading the question, rereading the question, make sure you know what the question is asking. And I put my questions on separate slides, underlining important information, identifying exactly what is being asked for. You typically would do a word splash, and maybe you could do a word splash, you know, in the notes column at the bottom, that, you know, how you have your speaker notes. That would be a good place to do a word splash. So buzzwords that you think you should include in this essay, or questions that words that are related. So like if you had a question about DNA replication, you're just gonna all of a sudden start buzzwording. You're gonna go DNA polymerase, RNA primer, telomerase, or topoisomerase, whatever. You're gonna throw a bunch of words out and then read the question again. And then you would cross out words that really don't belong. So that's all part of a planning period. You would outline your question, like how you're going to answer it. And that's all part of that 10-minute reading period that they give you. So I put in a community ecology FRQ right here. So this is the basic prompt and the question and the visual we'll use. And then you have 1, oops, that you shouldn't be there, 2, 3, and it should be 4 questions to answer about that. If they are giving you a graphic or a data table, they're expecting you to use examples specific to that graph or table. Okay, so for a blanket statement on any FRQ that we do, if they gave you something, you want to be sure to refer back to that. Okay, so I'm going to give us 3 minutes to just read the question. So we're not typing anything in yet. And then we're going to take 20 minutes to write our answer. So we have 3 minutes, read it, underline it, highlight it, make a word splash, make a short outline, whatever is helpful for you to answer your questions. Questions should always be in complete sentences. They don't have to restate the question. The reader knows what the question is. You would like this has 1A, 1B, 1C. I've labeled them for you. You would, when you're writing your answer, you do want to label each component 1A, 1B, 1C in the real, like the real deal. Okay, so 3 minutes, read, splash, words. Okay, we have 20 minutes to write our response. You may begin at any time. So what I wanted to kind of look at how this would be scored with points and everything. First of all, you guys are familiar with trophic levels, yes? Yeah, I wasn't sure if she had actually used that name. So organisms from 4 different trophic levels of this food web as examples. Explain how energy is obtained at each trophic level. So buzzwords that you might have used in this were producers and consumers, first level, secondary, tertiary consumers. Those would be all buzzwords. And you would talk about the producers using this energy from the sun through photosynthesis, because it wants you to explain, right? So you need to kind of include how it's happening. So you would talk about energy from the sun being used with photosynthesis to make the carbohydrates, and then the next level would obtain through heterotrophic nutrition. They would eat or consume the level below, basically. And then the efficiency, so this is your 10% rule. So you wanted to talk about 10% of the energy being passed on. So describe is kind of like painting a mental picture. So 10% of the energy being passed on, and you would probably want to talk about what happens to the rest of that 90%. So the rest of that 90% is used for that organism's individual life, right? They're using it for the most part for cellular respiration, cell reproduction. Those are 2 places where the majority of energy is used. And the rest is given off as heat. And you might have even talked about, because it says affects the structure of the ecosystem. So you're looking at that energy pyramid, right? There's less and less available as you go higher up the food chain. So I would probably have talked about that as well, making less available for the level above it. The dead terrestrial, oops, I didn't change this. Well, no, that's fine. I had changed the food web to the African one. That washed into the lake. See, this didn't have a lake. Commercially produced toxins. So this one we didn't really talk about. Did anybody hit biomagnification on this? Good, yeah. So, so with this, like the toxin is taken in at the lowest level, right? And because energy of, or pyramid of numbers, each level is eating more and more from the level below, right? So like, a mouse will eat like, I don't know, 1,000 pieces of grass, right? So now if that piece of grass had 1 unit of toxin, the mouse has now 1,000 units of toxins. And then what's going to eat the mouse? A hawk. And a hawk's going to eat like 20 mice. So now the hawk has 20 times 1,000 pieces of that toxin. And as you go up, because that's accumulating, right? The toxin is accumulating as you move up the food chain. And that's called biomagnification. So that's really so we hadn't talked about that with the girls, but that is where that one was headed. And then examples of symbiotic relationships that have evolved between organisms to allow each to obtain nutrients. So you have mutualism, where they're both going to benefit, and you would have given some specific example for that mutualistic relationship, like the bee and the flowers. Let me get my talk to the text. This was the original food web, but I had written all over this and I couldn't find that one, so I put in a new one. So I had, so the plants that we talked about, I don't know if we've talked about them yet, but plants that have like the bacteria that live along in their roots, the bacteria is breaking down the ammonia that the plant wouldn't be able to use on its own, or nitrates, and making that nitrogen available for the plant to assimilate into nucleic acids and proteins. Rhizobium is the name of the bacteria. And then you also have mycorrhizae, which are fungus that live along with the plants as well. So when they break things down, they're providing phosphates and sugars. So they're getting nutrients from the plants, like they're getting the sugars from the plants, right? And they're giving the phosphates. I kind of didn't say that quite right. So those are a couple of other examples. With FRQs, be familiar with the original directions because they're going to be the same on every single FRQ. So if you read them in advance in some practice FRQs, you can save time on your essay by not reading that direction, because that direction is not going to change. But this is an example how I talked to the text when I went through this myself, making sure I was answering like what specifically is being asked of me. What is the concept about transfer of energy? What is asked of me to identify the 4 different trophic levels? So I wanted to use from this specific model, explain how the energy is transferred. So that was what I just said, producer to photosynthesis. The first primary consumer eats, produces cell respiration, secondary, tertiary, blah, blah, blah. So like I kind of map it out before I write, and then that gives your brain a break. So now I just have to write about what I already kind of jotted down. And so that's just I guess a preview skill, if you will. Talking about the secondary law of thermodynamics, energy can be neither created nor destroyed, only changed in form. So that's something you could have added in there as well. So the energy isn't being lost, right? Some of it is lost as heat right here. Most of it goes into cellular respiration and other cell processes like ATP. The active transport requires energy. It requires energy to move things throughout the cells. It requires energy to move an organism at all, to produce its own body heat. All those kind of things are what we need energy for. Okay, and then the biomagnification, we kind of went through that. Like the phytoplankton is going to get a certain amount of toxin, and then the zooplankton is going to eat a bunch of the phytoplankton, so it's going to get a bunch of the toxin. And then the grayling, the small fish, eats that, and then that's going to accumulate as you move up through the food chain. Okay, and that's why we're not supposed to eat too much of the top level consumers. Like they're like, eat it only once a week. Okay. Any questions on that? I would have liked to have told you how many points everything was worth. Usually you get a point for like every action they ask of you. This would have been a 10-point question. I can tell you that. And often you have more points available than 10. So like maybe you could have gotten 12 points on this, but it would have maxed out at 10. But that gives you kind of a little bit of, you don't have to hit every single point. And there's often like 10 different ways you could hit this 1 point, right? So you guys know a lot of it. All right, any questions on that? Just kind of in practice. We'll try to incorporate some more often practice of the FRQ so we can be ready for that. Especially in the handwriting, like in the person, your hand gets tired, right? You're not used to writing for 90 minutes. So we need to just kind of work those muscles so that we're ready for that. Okay, so before we change gears, I thought we could take our 5-minute break.